Coming up this week in work.
A new Telegraph article claims 70% of managers can't handle younger workers. Our younger workers apparently are ruining offices by avoiding phone calls, wearing headphones, and setting boundaries. We'll look at what's really happening when generations clash over workplace norms.
Also this week, Microsoft analysed 200,000 AI conversations with their Copilot chat app, and they mapped out which jobs face extinction. We'll tell you exactly which jobs are going to be definitely going and which jobs are definitely safe.
And in Truth or Lie, your vibe attracts your tribe. We heard this at an event in Sarajevo last week and everyone nodded along. But when we dig into the research, is the reality more complex than the Instagram quote suggests? This is Truth, Lies and Work, the award-winning podcast where behavioural science meets workplace culture, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. My name is Leanne. I'm a chartered occupational psychologist.
And my name is Al. I'm a business owner.
And together we help organisations build amazing workplace cultures.
So let's get into it right after a quick word from our sponsors. Welcome back. Hello to all the new friends we met in Sarajevo.
Hello.
Yeah, we went up to an event by Yasmin Alitz. A really cool guy.
Alitch.
Yes, sorry, we're still getting used to the C's in the Bosnian alphabet. There are ts, there are ch, and there are ch, and apparently the last two are different. But Yasmin Alitch. Yes, so if you've never heard of him, well, you've probably seen his stuff. He's like the LinkedIn guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's amazing. Anyway, so we're part of his community. So check out our LinkedIn stuff coming up because there's going to be some changes. Anyway, it is Leanne's favourite time of the week. It is time for the news roundup.
Sure is, Al. Cue the jingle.
Okay, Lee, what have you seen?
6 ways Gen Z are ruining the workplace.
Oh, God, not another. It's always the Gen Z. Why don't we do 6 ways that Generation X are ruining the workplace? Or 6 ways that boomers are ruining our lives? Man, I suppose there probably are plenty of articles about that.
Yeah, well, I think Gen Z do seem to be getting a lot of attention, don't they?
The shitty end of the stick, I think, is what we say.
Indeed, yeah, the other end of the stick. I would like to see some articles about Gen X, actually, because you don't hear much about them, but you know they're the ones
generation.
pulling... Actually, the silent generation's the one above boomers.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was the same thing. All right, sorry, you were in the middle of it. You were in mid-flow.
Fine. Talk over me, Al. It's fine.
Woman, shush, a man is talking here. Obviously, I'm joking, just in case this is the first time you listened.
Before we get cancelled again, Al, honestly, the Telegraph this week has claimed that junior staff with unrealistic expectations are rewriting the rules of office life and leaving their senior colleagues, this word was actually in the article, baffled.
It's a good word, that.
It is a good word. So the article cites new data showing that around 70% of managers are struggling to handle younger employees because of what they describe as different attitudes to authority in work.
Dare they push
How
back?
dare they? So the paper outlines 6 key complaints. Al, do you want to have a guess or would you like to pick a number between 1 and 6? How do you want to play this Gen Z bashing game?
I'm going to pick a number just because I remember at the top we did say a couple of things. So I think one of those might be on there. So I'm going to go with number 3.
Number 3, wearing noise-cancelling headphones. Older colleagues see it as antisocial, while younger staff argue it helps them concentrate.
I think that's fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's to drown out your bullshit, Barry. 45-year-old Barry in accounts who just wants to tell you about what he watched on terrestrial TV last night and he's going to have to wait a week for the next episode to drop, whereas we've all watched it on YouTube. I say we as if I'm like Gen Z or younger worker.
I'm still getting over that you said dropped.
Dropped? Is that a thing? What?
No, it is. It's just
Did I
old to use.
Did I actually use a younger person word? Okay,
Yes.
boomer.
Do you want to pick another one?
4.
Number 4, dressing down. Managers described office outfits more suited to the beach, including miniskirts, bare feet and leather trousers. Bare feet is unacceptable.
No.
That's just dirty.
That's nasty work, that. Feet are nasty anyway. Ugh. I'm glad they're about as far away from my head as they possibly can be because my feet particularly are nasty. We won't get into that. Maybe we should do a Truth, Lies and Work after hours and tell them about what happened in Thailand to my feet. Anyway, no. Do you know what? Maybe I am going to come down on the boomer side of this by saying mini skirts in the office. I'm not sure about that. Just as if it was like a guy who was wearing a vest top, you know, those bromad type things. I wouldn't think that was very good. But I don't mind if someone wears like a polo shirt or a t-shirt or something, or, you know, that wouldn't bother me.
No, absolutely. And also, if you've got a dress code, then enforce said dress code. If you don't, get one or get on with it. Do you know what I mean?
Good
and
point.
also, why is it always about the women? Oh, the women are wearing short skirts. That's if you weren't such a dirty perv, Barry, maybe you wouldn't notice that Sandra's walked in with a short skirt on today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Barry's in a loveless marriage and he's got a very dodgy internet search history. He doesn't know how incognito works. Okay, so can we quickly go through? I want to pick 2 numbers if that's okay.
Yeah,
I want to go one and 2 because I want to see what the number 1 is.
Dodging phone calls. So older managers say younger staff avoid calls or stay silent when they answer. 140. Waiting for you to say something interesting, Barbara. 147-year-old marketing executive was this you, Al? Described calling a candidate for an interview only to hear breathing on the other end. Recruitment director Habiba Khatoon from Robert Walters, is that a recruitment firm? I'm not sure. Told the Telegraph this generation has grown up messaging instead of talking, and that important skill is being lost. Here's an idea: train them. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things, right? It was no problem for the boomers to have to go to specialist training to learn how to use the internet and email because that was like, oh, well, the world's changed and blah, blah, blah. So why is it so outrageous that Gen Z are maybe coming into our workforce and need some coaching around that, need some training around how to talk over the phone, how to have these conversations, and why in some situations this immediate phone call communication might be preferable in the workplace?
Okay, I agree with the second part of that. I'm going to push back on saying that we should run a 3-day course on how to answer the phone, because it's like when the internet came in and all the boomers and the people like my age, really, I think I was about 20 when the internet came in, then yeah, it's like it's a brand new technology. Whereas if you watch any kind of TV, people answer the phone all the time, and very few people in TV will answer the phone and just go. They're just not going to do it. Everyone knows you pick up the phone, you go, hello. That's what you do.
But to be fair, there's one time a candidate has done this. I think it's more about not just answering the phone, is it? It's about what are they afraid of? Why don't they want to talk on the phone? Is it they're not used to dealing with confrontation and they're not sure about having to think on their feet quickly? Are they not? Do you know what I mean? I am a very reflective thinker. So if you ask me a question, particularly work-based on what my manager would, I'd be like, And then he'd just say, I'll leave that with you. Or I would say, can I come back to you, have a think about it? I'll come back to you later on. If you don't know that that's okay, there could be a panic of like, well, I'm not going to answer the phone because I don't know how to respond. Number 2 is demanding safe spaces. How dare they? And then we also had fixating on woke causes and waltzing in late and walking out early. They're the 6 things anyway. It's causing frustration, misunderstanding.
You've had enough, haven't you?
I'm just so tired of the same argument going round and round and round and round. Reality is we have much more in common than we want to believe that we do. I don't think it's unreasonable for young people to want to be in safe spaces, want access to career counsellors or mental health practitioners. I don't think it's unacceptable for people to set boundaries in terms of what their working day looks like, what they get paid for, because that is such an important thing now that we have to take work with us because it's on our devices all the time. So I think there's whoever is frustrated and moaning about this at the top, one, recognise that the world of work has significantly changed since you were in your 20s. So we are going to have to set new norms and new boundaries for this to be sustainable for a generation that is probably going to be working into their late 70s. And the other thing as well, 70% of managers are struggling to handle younger employees. I'm sure that's a complete coincidence that 80% of managers aren't trained.
Yeah, good
Do you know
point.
what I mean? It's like maybe level up your skills to have these conversations about what is and isn't acceptable in your workplace for whatever reason, and actually bring people into that conversation rather than just slacking them off in the Telegraph.
There's definitely an opportunity, I think, for someone to start a business. There's someone already out there called the Gen Z Whisperer. And we talked about them a few months ago. But there's definitely some opportunity to go in there and do training for older people and say, right, okay, this is how you talk to younger generations. And then you can do the same one, and you do the same one for younger generations. I think if someone spoke a different language or you're a different culture, let's say you went to Japan, you've never been to Japan before, you're going to a business meeting, I would want someone to sit down with me and go, right, this is culturally how it works over here. You don't do this, you do that. If someone says something like this, you do. Do you know what I mean? And I think that we need that sort of thing for the younger generation in work. I agree. I'm still not on board with telling them how to answer the phone. I think everyone knows how to answer a phone. Well, I never understand, right? I'm hung up on this thing, aren't I? I never understand. You watch like Seinfeld or Friends or whatever, or you watch New York stuff, or even better, Suits. Do your goddamn job. At the end of the phone call, they just put the phone down.
Yeah, no one ever says goodbye.
Nobody says goodbye.
No, I know.
I'd be so annoyed. I'd be ringing them back going, did we just get cut off? They're like, no, I cut you off. Bomb. Anyway, that's why I didn't invite me back from my Suits audition.
Just couldn't get the Britishness of saying, thank you so much for calling.
Well, and then the British thing of going, anyway, well, so what are you up to for the rest of the day?
Yeah, definitely. I should let you go,
I should let you go, that's the one. And it's like, I should let you go, meaning I have grown bored of this conversation many minutes ago. Anyway.
Speaking of growing bored of this conversation many minutes ago, Al, what have you seen this week?
So there was a great article on, it's on sky.com, news.sky.com. I'm sorry.
This was a lead. This is a lead that we got from a listener.
Yes, so this is from Alec. Hello, Alec. Thank you very, very much for this. So this was an article all about 40 jobs that are going to be lost by AI and 40 jobs that never, ever will be. So basically, the background is Microsoft has got something called Copilot, Copilot, a bit like ChatGPT. I'm just looking over at Leanne and she's just trying to get over our last little exchange. She's just rubbing her eyes going, oh my God, why? Al, please cut all that out. So this research by Microsoft was basically looking through the Copilot, which is like the ChatGPT logs, and they looked at 200,000 conversations and they tried to work out, of the conversations, what percentage could be done by AI. So they found that 90% of the work or the conversations on Copilot around coding, web development, web software design, 90% of that could easily be done by AI. So therefore, they've gone 90% of AI, of work for coders can be done by AI. So would you want to have a guess at potentially some of those jobs that might have been disappeared by AI?
So other jobs that will disappear because of AI. Similar themes, I guess, in translators. Have we talked about that?
Interpreters and translators are number one. They're working out that the stat they're using is, or the metric they're using is the overlap. The overlap between an actual person doing the job and the person and someone having a chat with Copilot. 98% of the conversations of the work that interpreters and translators do, Microsoft reckon ChatGPT could do. It's number one. 98%. If you're an interpreter or a translator. Do you have another guess?
I would say something. It's all this service-based stuff, isn't it?
Do you want to hear a weird one?
Yeah.
That 74% of this job could be done by AI, and that's announcers and radio DJs.
Oh, I could see that, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's clever. Oh, see, I never thought of that. I will come back onto that in a second. So basically, the top ones are web development is fairly obvious. Personal finance advisors, 69%. I've seen a lot more experiments of where people will give LLMs £200 or $200 and say, go and invest this in the stock market. And they go and invest it and generally outperform like the majority of investors out there. One which I never thought of, 64% of modelling work can be done by AI.
Yeah, totally see that. Well, you've had these model influencers go viral, haven't you? And then like the girl at Wimbledon that turned out not to be real.
Which girl at Wimbledon?
There's this whole thing of like an influencer on Instagram or whatever it was. Maybe it was TikTok. Basically getting like hundreds and thousands of like likes and comments and stuff. And it quickly came out that she wasn't real. She wasn't really at Wimbledon. It was AI generated content. They figured it out because just one of the pictures looked like she had 3 knees.
AI is still not very good.
No, it's still working on the digits, isn't it?
Very good if you're into niche kind of like fetishes and you do like 3 knees on a woman. But right, I'm going to read you a quote here by an AI expert who would rather stay anonymous due to the relationships they've got with large companies, which either means they're a very important person or, Sky News made it up. If you were to look at these jobs in 3 to 5 years, there's a very good chance they've been replaced entirely.
It's going to be manual stuff, isn't it? Anything like fixing stuff or...
Yeah, I've got floor sanders, floor finishers. I've got painters, plasterers. Yeah. Although, I did see a YouTube short the other day. We call it TikTube, don't we? Because we're not cool enough for TikTok. Of a robot that was painting a wall. And basically had a little jet and it was spraying the paint on the wall. And it obviously knew exactly how high to go up and so it was cutting in perfectly. So maybe not necessarily painters. Any other guesses?
Cleaners.
Cleaners are up there. They're number 3. Nurses.
Oh, of course, healthcare. Yeah.
Massagers. Opticians. Now, I don't know about that because you would have thought that's something which would be...
would.
But unless people are just a bit squeamish about having robots anywhere near their eyes in case they just go in there and grab an eye and just pull it out. Also, good news if you went to university and studied motorboat operation, because motorboat operators were number 2 on there. And then also phlebotomists.
What's a phlebotomist?
I didn't know. I was going to pretend I knew what it was, but I had to Google it. Listeners, I bet you know what it is. Jump on LinkedIn and tell us if you know what a phlebotomist is. It's someone who draws blood. I've got dentists.
I see, why wouldn't a robot be able to do that?
I don't know.
Like a little hand come out and go... Whoop.
Again, maybe it's just squeamishness of put your hand down there and then a robot comes out and basically just again grabs your wrist and rips it off or something. I don't know. There is an upside to this though, Lee. And I'm going to read this from a quote from the person I haven't written down. He says, I don't see an AI right now coming up with wonderful ideas for creative writing authors. But what it is good at doing is taking an author's idea and making a first draft extremely quickly. So they said, does that mean we have fewer authors or does that mean we have more? And they're trying to say, yes, you're going to have more, because if you can come up with a great idea, ChatGPT can pull it out of you, just like they'd pull the eye out of you, pull it out of you and turn it into a book. So we will have potentially more authors. And also like a landscaping firm, they use ChatGPT and they say, basically, generate me personalized services to upsell to existing customers. And ChatGPT did, and they went off and sold more, and therefore, obviously, more work for the workers. So it's not all poo. It's sometimes good. Like they always say that you feed poo to roses and they grow better. No one's ever said that. Lee, what else have you seen, my love? It's going really well so far.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to lighten the mood with this one, but Amazon is preparing another round of job cuts. Only this time it's HR that's going to get the chop. So this is according to Fortune, which reports the company is planning to cut 15% of its human resources division, known internally as PXT, or People Experience and Technology.
Oh, that's made me sick in my mouth.
Sources say other areas of Amazon's consumer business could also be affected, although it's not yet clear how many roles in total are going to go. So a bit more information if you're interested. The division reports to Senior Vice President Beth Galletti and has more than 10,000 staff worldwide, including people in recruitment, HR tech, and traditional people roles. An Amazon spokesperson declined to comment, but the article says the latest reductions come as the company looks to cut costs while pouring money into artificial intelligence. Amazon has said it plans to spend around $100 billion this year building cloud and AI data centers, both for its own use and for enterprise clients. It's a lot of people, and of course this isn't the first time that Amazon has made massive layoffs. I think 27,000 corporate jobs were laid off between 22 and 23. And most recently, I was really sad to hear about is how they've decided to close their Wondery podcast division.
Oh.
I know. Some of my favourite podcasts from Wondery, but equally maybe because sometimes Business Wars always knocks us off when they come out with a new series. They're Wondery, yeah. So,
well, no, please, yeah, well done, Jassy. Yeah, good decision. Now, if someone could shut down Diary of a CEO, then we'll be number one again.
Yes, that would be marvellous. I can't see it happening anytime soon. I mean, there's loads more in the article about Andy Jassy being pretty clear, wanting to embrace AI. It's not, Amazon has always been particularly known for creating a wonderful human experience. So, it is what it is for Amazon, I think. It's a hard one talking about this, and I wanted to include it just because I think we hear so much about it, we forget about the actual people. Have we talked about this before, the deadly arithmetic of compassion?
Yes.
So we're not very good at empathizing with people at scale, but, one-on-one we are. Just
in case the listener's not heard of that, am I right thinking that you say 250,000 people are losing their job or 20,000 people are losing their job, and then Bob next door lost his job to Amazon, and you can't compute the 220,000, but you can think, oh, poor Bob. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, our nervous system can't count. So we're very good at empathizing on a one-to-one level, which is why charities, when they're after money, will always show one story of one person who is in need. But my point I really wanted to include it is for anyone who is maybe been disconnected from these layoffs, of dealing with the deadly arithmetic of compassion, try and think about those people that in your network that might have been laid off, that might need your help. And you never know what can help in terms of just reaching out, seeing if they're okay, having a chat, putting them in touch with people, keeping your ear to the ground if there's jobs going around in your organisation. And get in touch with us as well. We offer one free coaching session every quarter to somebody who is dealing with a layoff and looking at a career transition. So get in touch. So yeah, not a happy article, but important to remember that there are people out there that are really struggling right now. And don't forget that Andy Jassy is an absolute poodle for getting rid of Wondery podcast division. You fool.
Anyway, on to perhaps slightly more upbeat. Sorry for bringing you all down. Slightly more upbeat news. We have, after the break, the Truth or Lie segment. This is our myth busting where we talk about all kinds of things that everyone goes, yeah, that's true. And then we ask our psychologist, which is my wife and co-host sitting opposite me now, say hello.
Hello.
And she will tell us whether it's true or not. So we will see you after this very, very quick break. Welcome back. It is time for Truth or Lie. This is our weekly myth-busting segment. We're going to take those psychological claims you've seen everyone ask, does the evidence actually back this up? So far, in this segment, we've talked about left brain creativity about 3 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, whether tall people are more successful. And then a week ago, we talked about Maslow's famous pyramid, the hierarchy of knees. And we just basically dispelled that. So this week's claim comes from an event we mentioned at the beginning in Sarajevo with the awesome Yasmin Alic. During the session, he said something that clearly resonated with the room. He said, your vibe attracts your tribe. And we were obviously sitting there with about 70 other people, similar interests, similar energy. Certainly felt like there was something, something about that. And also people seemed to agree with it. And to be fair, Yasmin has brought together a really great group of people. So here is today's question, Leanne. Is it a truth or a lie? Does your vibe really attract your tribe?
It's a catchy little phrase, isn't it?
I like it.
Yeah. So, the idea is pretty simple. This is the first time you've heard of this. Your vibe attracts your tribe. It's the idea that if you're being yourself, you put out your authentic energy into the world, and the right people will naturally gravitate towards you, like attracts like, birds of a feather, all that kind of stuffs.
Moth to a flame.
Moth to a flame. Slightly darker ending on that one though. It's nice. Does the evidence back it up? Well, we do have a bit of evidence that backs this up actually, Al. So there's a well-documented phenomenon called the similar to me effect. Do you know what I enjoy?
What?
Is when psychologists name the phenomenon something that just makes sense.
Yes.
Similar to me effect. You can have a decent idea of what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than going, it's the such and such and such and such,
Yeah, 100%. Rather than the unorthodox reverse thrusting. Yeah. And it's
self-efficacyness.
Yes, I can't say that word.
No.
Sorry. So, similar to us, is that what it's called?
Similar to me effect. So basically research shows consistently that people do become friends, they collaborate and they fall in love with others who mirror them in important ways. So one study found that romantic partners share almost 90% of traits. So big things like religion, political ideology, and also smaller lifestyle factors like diet, whether they drink or smoke, how much water they drink daily, and even how much time they spend on the computer.
If that is true, then my parents are the exception that proves the rule. Could not be more different people.
Yeah, we'll get on to the exception that proves the rule slightly. Yes, on average, couples are typically similar in age, ethnicity, education, and most importantly, they share similar core beliefs and values. And that isn't just about initial attraction. Similarity also predicts long-term relationship success. So people who are similar tend to agree on more things, for politics, religion, how to raise children. And the more similar you are, the smoother the relationship tends to be. And there's also evidence that opposites don't just fail to attract, they actively repel. So the opposite of your vibe attracts your, yeah. But there's a second part to what Yasmin said, wasn't there?
Something like your clicks attract pricks or something like that. No, well, it was something like that, wasn't
it? Your vibe attracts your tribe. And basically saying that you'll also repel, which is what the evidence also said. So particularly when it comes to views, values, temperaments, studies have shown that introverts and extroverts are less likely to pair up, which does kind of bust the myth that opposites attract. I'm not sure how to position that in a positive way for your mum and dad, and then they are the exception that prove the rule.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're listening.
No, they're definitely not. So this similarity principle that we're talking about does extend beyond romantic relationships, and it's called homophily. So walk into a secondary school and you'll instantly see all the cliques, right? Groups sitting together. Mm-hmm. They tend to be remarkably similar, whether it be clothing or extracurricular activities, perceived popularity, perhaps.
Why'd you look at me when you said that? Yeah, I was with the chess club guys and all the IT guys. Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, research has documented this across academic performance, exercise habits, even problematic behaviours like boys. People do come together with people that they see as similar to them. So the evidence of similarity attraction is very, very strong. But of course, this is psychology. It's not always that simple. There are some things
depends.
It depends. So let's take a look at what complicates this a little bit. This is such a psychologist thing, and this is why I freaking love psychology, but also why people get really frustrated with us. So there's a critical question here, Al. Do we attract similar people, or do we become similar to the people we're around?
So are you saying that people who are similar in that thing will get together and that they'll join, or someone will change slightly so that they are similar to that person and they'll join?
That is the question.
Is it?
That is the question, exactly. Do we attract similar people to us, or do we become similar to the people that we're around?
Okay.
So psychologists distinguish between selection effects and socialization effects. So selection effects is when we actively seek out people we perceive as similar.
Mm-hmm.
Socialization effect is when we become more similar to our peers through association. So if you're hanging out with runners, then 6 months later, you probably signed up for a 10K.
Right.
You didn't seek out runners because you're a runner. You became a runner because you were around runners.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So both processes could happen simultaneously, and research actually hasn't determined which is more powerful, socialization effects or selection effects. So we're still not sure about that. Then there's the chameleon effect. Have you heard about this?
No.
So this was a big famous study that came out in the late 90s. So basically, psychologists discovered that we unconsciously mimic other people's body language, speech patterns, facial expressions, and gestures. And crucially, mimicking this makes people like us more. But it's been picked up in a commercial sense to improve your influence as a salesperson, perhaps, or as your influence as a leader. But the chameleon effect was in terms of how it's been discovered, does happen entirely outside of that conscious awareness. So your brain will just automatically copy someone's posture when you're trying to connect. And people who are mimicked report feeling more positively towards the people doing the mimicking. The interesting thing about the chameleon effect as well is it suggests that we don't just attract similar people, we actively make ourselves similar to people we want to like us. So I'm sure you've seen this in groups perhaps where there's a very dominant person, and that will kind of breed more of this kind of dominant behavior because people are trying to mimic it. Highly empathetic people are actually very prone to this. So they're much more likely to engage in the chameleon effect. And then there's also a slightly more complex side to similarity attraction, which we talked about very first. And the chameleon effect can sometimes backfire into unintentional mockery, especially with accents. So you've heard people who will just pick up accents. I also believe that's linked to people who are very musical, have strong musicality. They'll pick up accents of other people's, which can either be a bit, it feels like you're taking the mick out of them, or it can feel a bit overforced or a bit fake and unauthentic. And then that lack of authenticity will then negate the similar to me effect. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, really, if it is taken too far. And there is a bit of a dark side to it as well in terms of imitating others. It can then start to override your own personal values. So you could unconsciously pick up unhealthy behaviors, or in terms of certain biases or discrimination. So there was a big news thing this week, wasn't there, about a group of young Republicans. Their WhatsApp chat was released. Did you see this?
No.
Lots of hate speech. So in terms of this mimicking, because we want to be included, can start to possibly shift us into ideologies that we wouldn't necessarily have held previous to that because of the impact of in-group bias, I guess. Similarity does drive attraction. People form relationships with those who share their values, beliefs, and lifestyle, but it's not passive. You have to actively select similar people and unconsciously adapt by mimicking these behaviors. And similarity isn't just about energy or vibe necessarily. It's about very concrete things like political beliefs, values, and lifestyle choices. So in terms of is it a truth or is it a lie, I'm confident to say it's true. It's true. So long as we don't oversimplify it, as long as we appreciate the nuance. And I have no doubt that Yasmin, who hosted this event and brought up this phrase, absolutely does. So yeah, is that our first true?
I think it might be our first almost 100% true, as long as you don't overdo it. It's good for a psychologist to come down one way or another. So just remind us, what was it called? What was the effect called?
We've got the similarity effect, which then leads into the chameleon effect, which basically means that we attract people who are similar to us. And when we're around people, we become more similar to them in terms of kind of this group forming community base, which goes back all the way to to evolution and staying alive, didn't it? So, yeah.
Okay, Lee, I think it's time for our world famous weekly workplace surgery where I put the listeners' questions to who reads a podcast. I was about to say,
I know someone who does read a podcast.
Who?
I know somebody who will probably be listening now who uses like the podcasting summary app thing that will actually read it because not as much time to sit and listen to it. I forget the name of the app.
Well, don't use it. Listen to us, because if you read the summary, and we don't get a download, and we don't get that tangled dopamine spike. So these apps are very, very bad. Anyway, on to the world famous workplace surgery. Oh my God! This week we're recording this on well, I can't tell you we're recording it early, can we? So this is live on Tuesday when you listen to it. Anyway, what was I saying? World famous weekly workplace surgery where I put your questions to Leanne. Leanne is a chartered occupational psychologist. She knows an awful lot about work, and she knows also an awful lot about things we're going to be talking about today. Lee, are you ready for question number 1?
I'm ready.
So question number 1. I think one of my remote employees is working 2 full-time jobs. What should I do? We're a remote team, and one of my employees is performing very well overall. Their work gets done, they show up in meetings, there haven't been any major issues, but I've had my suspicions for a while. They might be working a second full-time role at the same time. The reason I'm asking now is because I recently noticed messages from another company popping up on their screen during a call. Names and topics I didn't recognize, definitely not from our business. Their calendar is also blocked out far more than it should be, and I know it's not all internal meetings. However, the output's really good, so should I just ignore it? Or should I formally raise a problem and set clearer expectations about focus and availability? What's the right approach here? Lee, we have talked about this before, haven't we? We had a news story about a guy who had about 8 jobs, pulling in about £1 million a year, and then it all came crashing down. But this sounds, just from the point of view of the person who maybe does have a second job, this just sounds a little bit naive. It's their first rodeo, because you don't want to be, you want to just at least mute your calendar and not make it fully shared. But anyway, that's Lee.
Yeah.
What's the official thoughts?
Do you know, the output is good. The output is good.
Mm-hmm.
Is it as good as it should be? Is it as good as you want it to be? Is it getting stuff done? Do you have a policy that somebody isn't allowed to have more than one job?
Oh, great question.
How is that worded in the contract? Is it actual hours? Is it around more outputs or projects? There are some nuances here that you need to understand really to really figure out if this person is being a bit naughty or whether they're just taking, making the most of an opportunity that they've got. My thought would be, your question is, do I ignore it or do I formally raise it? I'd say something in the middle, especially as this first conversation. In terms of just sitting down and having a conversation with them, how are you finding work? Have you got enough to do? How's the workload going? Would you like anything more challenging? And then as the conversation starts to happen, there might be some cues that you can pull up on, or indeed if it's very short answers with no real details given away, then you can say, okay, I'm just wondering if perhaps you're taking on an extra side hustle or something, or maybe you start a side hustle. I've noticed some things here and there, and just curious to see how you're managing with your workload at the minute and see what details they come up with. And within the context of whether actually this isn't allowed within the company and it isn't in the contract, because if they've got nothing in that in terms of their contract, you're on pretty shaky ground really in terms of if they do have a second full-time job, as long as they're delivering the outputs that they agreed to. So I think I just have it as a conversation, maybe mention that you've noticed these things, that they're blocked out a bit more than you'd expect. Why is that? Is there something that could be helping you with? Just have a very curiosity-driven conversation with your member of staff to try and find out a little bit more information. But I think ultimately it comes down to your company's policy, what happens after you've had that conversation and understood exactly what is happening with this person if they do have a second full-time job. If you do have a policy, then it does come into a conversation of, well, I need to bring up the fact that in your contract it does state this and that. Your outputs have been really brilliant, so I can't complain there, but we would expect you to prioritize this position and let that other position go. Or indeed, there could be a world where this could be a part-time position and you just halved your salary and still getting the output. Of course, that might not work for the individual. There's lots of options in terms of how to handle it once you know exactly what's going on and the context in which it's happening. But I'm always a fan of managed by outputs. If somebody's delivering the work you need them to do and doing it to a quality level that you require, my thought is always going to be preserving this employee within your business, because clearly it's working.
I'm thinking if that was me, I'd be like, oh, if I let this slide, is everyone then going to go and get a second job?
Mm-hmm.
And if this person is particularly good at it and they produce the great outputs, they're probably in the minority.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be a little bit concerned. So at that point, I'd take your first piece of advice and go, I'm going to implement you can only work here. Unless it's got written permission, you can only work for one job.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to implement that policy and send it out to people, would it retrospectively apply to this person?
Technically speaking, I believe you'd be issuing a new contract of employment. So that person would then have to choose to agree or not. So you could have some, voluntary attrition that'll happen in releasing that new policy. You can't just go, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You'd have to make a formal change to the employment contract.
Interesting.
Yes, which could be risky.
Yeah, absolutely. If you listen to this and you are wondering about the HR angle on it, we have our friends over at the Curve Group. They usually answer our HR technical questions, so it's worth going and asking them or looking on the website. I'm sure they've got something about this. Just don't do anything silly. Don't go, we'll be fine, or ChatGPT it, because this is serious stuff. This is contracts and people, so be careful with them. Okay, question number 2. How do you actually motivate your team to upskill? So this person runs a service-based business. They write, I'm realizing how crucial it is to keep our team's skills sharp. The challenge is, while my team understands the value of learning and development, they rarely take the initiative themselves. I've had plenty of conversations about why upskilling matters, both for the careers and for the business, but it feels like I'm dragging people to the water and they're not drinking. What works in practice to create a culture where people genuinely want to develop their skills?
I think my first question is why do you want your team to upskill, and what value is that going to add to their role within the organization? Because, I absolutely applaud your efforts here. And you're right, learning and development is a really important part of employee engagement, a really important part of professional development, and actually increasingly a really important part of recognition within our organizations and recognizing what people want to do and helping them with that. So I applaud your intention. This is wonderful. But yeah, my question is why? If they understand the value of it, that's good, but they're clearly not connecting with what that means in terms of their outcomes. So if you have a really clear development path and you say, right, Amanda, you are on track to be go into a management position in the next 2 years, but during that time, I'd expect to see some learning and development around self-awareness, emotional intelligence, having difficult conversations, that type of thing. Then I'm going to be engaged in that learning, assuming I want to be a manager, because that's what I need to do to get to the next step of my career. It could be that AI is something that the organization is implementing. So you go, guys, in terms of making sure that we're the best that we can be, performance keeps going, that we all have our jobs safe and secure, really important that we upskill in AI. And that actually might be where it becomes more mandated learning, perhaps, if it is really integral to the operations and strategy of the organization. And I've seen this before with clients I've worked with who've got the best intention. They're typically very creative, curious founders who love to learn and are always picking up a book. And they'll have things like, we've got an X £1,000 a year budget for people in training and development, but nobody uses it. I'm like, well, that's cool, but what prompts have you given them to use it? Have you brought in some training suppliers to talk about the type of training courses that they offer and what it could mean for their career? Are you having one-to-ones with people and learning about what direction they want to go in the future? If they do want to go into management, if they do want to go into a slightly different industry or whatever it is, it's understanding your person and going, right, okay, well, if that is your ultimate career goal, these are the steps to get you here. This is a learning development that's going to work, and this is the budget we have available to it. Should we get you booked on some stuff? Particularly if you're dealing with younger employees who haven't quite figured out what they want to do yet. So I think it just needs to be a lot more interactive, a lot more of a kind of a two-way conversation as a manager, and probably a lot more individualized in terms of you taking the time to understand what people want to do. This is also going to have to take a massive amount of psychological safety and trust and security that somebody has in you as a manager, because you could well have people in your organization who are really interested in learning and development, but they're interested in learning and development that is going to take them away from the job they're currently in and potentially the organization they're currently in. Is that something you'd invest in terms of learning and development or not? If you found out that somebody wants to essentially go through a different path and leave your organization in 2 to 3 years, are you still going to support them during that period of time? Because if they haven't got that psychological safety, they're not going to be honest about what their learning and development needs are or wants are. So there's a lot of complicated relationship-based psychology to this type of organizational intervention or perk, whatever you want to call it, but it really requires much more input from you at an individual level to figure out what people want to do, or at an organizational level, what learning and development is going to be useful for people to have in terms of their development with the company over a period of time, whether that be in terms of how the company is changing or in terms of moving up the ranks.
That's why she's a psychologist. Okay, so question number 3 and the final one. I've just started a new job and it's full of red flags. Should I get out now? I accepted a lower level role out of necessity after 6 months of unemployment. I knew it wasn't ideal, but I wasn't prepared for just how bad it would be. Within my first week, my manager, who's already on their way out, was openly trashing the company, from awful health insurance to the complete lack of systems or tools. Turns out they're not replacing my manager either, just spreading their work across an already stretched team. There's cost-cutting everywhere, people are clearly demotivated, and I've seen multiple decisions that make no sense if this company wants to survive long-term. I'm still job hunting, but now I'm wondering, do I try and stick this one out, or do I cut my losses early? How do you know when it's worth riding out the storm and when to run before the ship sinks? Lee.
I'm going to keep this really simple and say at this point, I think you need to stick it out.
Oh, that's not what I expected.
Really?
Go on.
There's a couple of reasons. One, you said you've taken a role slightly under your usual level after 6 months of unemployment.
Yes, 6 months.
If you leave this job now, it ain't going to look good on your resume, your CV. It's just really not going to look good in terms of taking a job that clearly wasn't right or was mismatched in terms of your flow of work experience, and then to only last a couple of months before dropping out shows that it's going to put doubt in the mind of any recruitment officer or hiring manager if you do want to apply for a role that is slightly outside of what you've done previously, because they're going to question, well, have you got the right judgment to make that because it didn't work out previously? So I think that's reason one. Two, it's always easy to get a job when you've already got a job.
Yeah.
That's just the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
People are always gonna be unfairly discriminatory about people who are unemployed. It's not cool, it's not fair, it's not correct, but that is the way it is. So I think for those 2 reasons, it's important. The third reason, which really depends on the type of organization, your role, your level of influence, and who you can chat to. If your manager is awful and they're already on their way out, good, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
That is a wonderful thing. You've said they're not planning on replacing the manager, spreading the work across a stretched team, not ideal. But then you say some things that get my little senses going as if I was a senior leader to think I need to hear more about this. You said they're cost-cutting everywhere. People are clearly demotivated, and I've seen multiple decisions that make no sense if this company wants to survive long-term. That, to me, sounds like you've got a lot of potential to bring to a high-level role within the organization that's going to have a massive amount of impact. I would spend the next 2-3 weeks, however long it is, particularly once your manager has gone and there'll be a bit more understanding of what is happening, is just keep notes, keep little entries and whatever it is, whether you type, whether you journal it, in terms of what's happening, what you've seen, why you think a decision wasn't right, the negative impact that's had, why you would have done it differently, what impact that could have had. People are clearly demotivated. It sounds like you're a manager. Find ways to bring up morale and motivation. Start building those relationships. You talked about systems and tools. Start looking at tasks that maybe you can help flow a bit better. That's what we call task cohesion, as we talked about last week. I think that task cohesion can then breed team cohesion, which then helps motivation and morale. It sounds like there's an opportunity here for you to be part of this organization's transformation and turnaround. Should you want to, should they last long enough, and should you have the senior leaders in the organization that are open to having this conversation with you. So I would say collect your data, collect your ideas, start to make little moments of influence where you can, and just see how it pans out. Continue with your job hunting, continue with your searching. But I think there's an opportunity here, potentially, depending on what you want and what the organization can do, what its appetite for change is. As the positive side of the coin, and the more negative side of the coin is it's going to look really bad on your CV if you leave this job too early. It's always easier to get a job when you have one. So I would say stick with it for now. Particularly if you're already, saying that you could cut your losses early, then I'd say, yeah, go in, identify the problems and go with some solutions, particularly if you can talk to your team about some of those solutions. So you've got the consensus of the group, then go to whoever will be the next person up and go, look, we've noticed that this is really clunky and the process is slowing us down. I had a chat with everybody and we all agree this could be a really great way forward. Do I have your permission to change this process over the next week and just see how it goes? Or there's anything I've not thought about in terms of how this process currently works I need to be aware of? And have that conversation. You might be surprised that there'll be a senior leader up there going, thank goodness, finally, I've got a manager that is willing to kind of take on some of this continuous improvement work. If your manager's on the way out, there's a story there, isn't there? I would hold on just for the gossip and just see how this turns out.
Isn't that like a RuPaul thing?
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to see how this turns out.
Okay, so if you have a question, thank you, by the way, Leanne.
You're very welcome.
You're contractually obliged to answer these questions, but still, I'll be polite and say thank you very much. If you have a question of your own, then check out the show notes. You can send us an email. Most of these are anonymous, but if you want me to shout your name out, then I'm very happy to do that. We have got on Thursday.
We've got a really great interview. We've got Danny Wareham coming on the show. He is a psychologist, an author, a coach, and his new book, Constellation, is just out. I think it was released this week, last Monday. And it's really cool. It is raising a question. Can we have leaderless organizations? Do we need leaders at all? And the research, I think, it's quite surprising, Al. It's quite surprising. I had a good old conversation with Danny and I wasn't convinced, but I think I might be by the end of it.
Yeah, I'm editing the episode at the moment, his interview, and it's really interesting, really, really cool guy. Another fellow Brit as well from Stoke-on-Trent, I believe. Yeah, so almost northern. Sorry, Daddy, you're not full northern.
I want to say a fellow northerner, but with Stoke would call themselves northerners, wouldn't they?
I think Danny would. Danny's more northern than southern. Yeah, 100%.
Or is it Midlands Stoke? I don't know.
Moving on, we will see you on Thursday for a bit of Danny, and we'll see you on Tuesday for a bit more of Al and Leanne and a bit more of this ridiculousness with the occasional gem thrown in. If you haven't subscribed, then click subscribe. If you haven't been on LinkedIn and followed Leanne, go do that right now. I'll wait. No, sorry. Get your phone out. Yeah. LinkedIn app. Search for Leanne Elliott. Yeah, she's the good-looking one with the lovely background. And go and click follow, because she's definitely worth a follow. Some of her stuff is brilliant. Some of it's not very good. No, that's not true.
How rude.
Anything to add before we let these lovely people go?
No. Click, subscribe, like, review, get in touch, all that stuff. Don't sleep on the show notes. We actually have links in there to email us, to connect with us on LinkedIn, and actually to book in a conversation with us. And what always surprises me is we get so many guest pitches for this show. It surprises me that we don't get somebody just booking themselves in for half an hour and pitching there and then. But why? How good would that be?
Oh, man.
Cut that out if you don't want that to happen.
Because you know I'm going to go, who the bloody hell's this? And then they go, hi, I want to be a guest. Anyway, I'm going to go. Bye.
Bye.